don't know if I'll get any sound this way. I think my pocket is covered. Which one down?
Hey, what's up, Neil?
Yo, what's up? Good evening or good afternoon. Don't know. Oh, I guess good afternoon in Chicago. Good evening for Function in UK.
Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah, all good, man. Just got back home. I was out. I had a few errands to take care of, but yeah, now I'm relaxed. I can chill out a bit. You know.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys have a good amount of time because I have a lot of topics to cover today. I have, a few price action topics. I'll start with those, and then I got a ton of different psychological topics, which seems to be like a pretty common point of interest for people. And I think it's important too. It's one of those things where, there's how many different psychological things are there? There could be 3 dozen, but
Well,
if one of them is just wrong for you, that could throw off everything. So but first, I guess we just start out with maybe we'll follow back into the price action topic, and we'll start with the psychology. I think a good starting point is to talk about sort of the mindset of a new trader coming into the market and some of the things that they believe. I think the number one common belief or misconception is that they'll approach the market with the idea that trading is easy, right, and that they can get rich quick.
yeah.
And I think sort of a corollary of that is that there's some way to crack the code of the market, some secret code that they just need to tweak and crack, and then they can get rich quick, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, speaking for experience, right? When I started out, I thought, you know what, I kind of have the chance to have a look at these different strategies, and I'm expecting that at least one of them will work, and so I just need to learn it, and after that, I will be profitable. And as you were saying, the problem is in due time you realize that it's not just about the strategy. I mean, strategy is just a single component, and of course it's very important, of course, but it takes time to realize that at the end of the day, it's not just a strategy, but it's the individual behind it, the executioner behind it. That's the main focus. And so the main focus is, at the end of the day, yourself. Basically, you are in charge. You are basically pulling the trigger and clicking the mouse. So I think that's a good point to start off from.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's you sort of people come into the market with a certain set of expectations and beliefs, and learn very how painfully that those beliefs aren't accurate. And I'm sort of the opinion that the market will teach everybody that as long as they are spend enough time in the market.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like if you don't learn those lessons, then it doesn't matter how much time you spent in the market. The market will keep teaching those lessons to you until you learn. But that kind of it kind of ties into, I think, the natural thing that happens to people is they sort of go through this period where they think they know a lot, right? I don't know if you've seen the I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger model. It's like competence versus competence versus confidence marked on a graph, and it shows like when you start, you people their confidence to competence ratio is very skewed, and then
Yeah, I know.
they hit
Yeah,
reality and they encounter the valley of despair.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, and then you have some sort of a reversal. Yeah, yeah. I saw the chart. Yeah.
yeah, I think I would assume that like most people stop trading during that period, right? The valley of despair.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think if you look at successful people in this business, a lot of them, almost all of them, they had these periods where somehow they thought they were killing it. They were at the top of the Ray game, and all of a sudden, the market proves them wrong. And I guess the big difference in long-term longevity is that you need to accept this period and to realize that what you were doing probably was actually working. But maybe it was just due to a particular condition in the marketplace back then, and of course that's not guaranteed that it's gonna work forever. And so when you have those downturns, you need to be strong enough to accept it. And I mean, to deal with yourself and just being honest with yourself and realize that maybe you're not as good as you thought, and you need to maybe to tweak a little bit of your edge or to reconsider a few things, or maybe to do a little bit of a self-analysis on yourself as a person, as a trader, and just just be aware that you cannot be right every single time, and the market will spank you from time to time, and you need to be strong enough to endure it. You know, to come, to get on the other side of it, right?
Yeah, I know. At least for me personally, when I was going through that period, the one thing that probably helped me the most, of course, there are a lot of things that helped me. I think the number one thing, though, I think is the idea. Even when I was in that valley of despair, I was able to look around and I could see that there were people out there who were consistent and profitable and were successful. And when I looked at them, they weren't, they were just people. They weren't that different than I was. So I took solace in the fact that, like, look, it could be done, right? So all I had to
Hmm.
figure out it was how to do it, right? There were people already doing
Yeah.
it. And, I think another point is like, you don't, not to take it personally, right? If you're a new trader going through that uh, path of despair, and because it's like almost a rite of passage, right? Everybody goes through it. Um, and I think there's a tendency to take it personally, like you're the only person who's experienced this. Nobody else has been through what you've been through. Um, that's totally untrue. Every, Everybody goes through it if they're trying to trade, and but I think there's a certain amount of stubbornness that you need to persevere in that type of condition. Right?
yeah. You have to have a drive.
Yeah, because it's one of those situations. If like you really need the internal motivation to persevere, because if you look around for the approval of others or the opinion of others, everybody's going to tell you that look, you need to close up shop, like pack it up, and nobody would blame you if you did that. So there's you need to have an not unreasonable, but a little bit of stubbornness and resilience to make it through there.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely think the emotional side is something that's a shock to a lot of people.
yeah, and I
I
think
think they don't connect what's going on be related. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it comes into the value of despair, where you think you know everything, and then the market proves you wrong, and you're like, I've got to rethink everything again. From the ground up. Do you know what I mean? It's interesting because you weren't wrong. You just didn't have the detail. But as you fall by the wayside until you learn the detail, and sort of that's when you really start learning, isn't it?
yeah, um, I think one thing that can help, right, is to not get blindsided by it. Is just to know that if you're a beginning trader and you haven't experienced it yet, it's just to know that you will experience it. right? And if you know that ahead of time, you can prepare for it and you can plan for it. And then when it does happen, then it's not as shocking, or because you knew it was coming.
I mean, that's where I think the sort of black swan theory can be quite interesting, because even just having an opinion around the black swan theory, which of course I might have, if you're aware that a black swan event can happen, uh, and you know you can't predict it, you can always make sure that your risk model accommodates that right from the off. You know what I mean? So you've got a disaster recovery area. Because I think the one thing that saves people and keeps people trading is that they haven't actually completely crashed out. I think when people just crash out completely through lack of risk management, I think that's when they disappear.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it's hard to explain to somebody the need for risk management until they get severely fucked.
It really is, yeah.
So, but if you can have that wisdom and foresight as a beginning trader, you'll save yourself a lot of pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really brings in the importance of a risk model. If you are.
Yeah. Would you agree on the fact that sometimes when people start out and from scratch they only win, right? It could be even worse than actually starting out with a good amount of winner and loser distribution, because I think somehow it, it starts a bad attitude, a bad mindset, because if you start out and all of a sudden you're just winning, it builds up a fake perception of the market, because when you finally reach that point where you start losing, is even more painful, because you're not used to it. And I think you could really go through some sort of a psychological meltdown, because you're actually facing a situation that you weren't prepared to face. And maybe due to the fact that you only knew winners, you basically weren't even considered, right?
I mean, I do have an opinion on this, because I think trading comes. You can split it into two kind of big categories really loosely: risk management and picking trades that are winners, if you like. And I think you'll find people will gravitate to one particular way of learning first than the other, as they cross themselves in the middle. So yeah, you get people that get beginner's luck, but then you get I bet the older generation like myself tend to not get that beginner's luck thing at all, because our main concern is our risk management, and we tend to learn that first.
Yeah, me neither. I'm on the same side.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because I would say that I had a lot of losses, but it doesn't matter because I was just learning it. I'm a slow learner, maybe, do you know what I mean? But suddenly, then it does turn, and it turns really quickly, and you start going up into a winning streak, which is what I've just been going through recently. And it's like, I don't know when it'll stop, or it might stop at the beginning next week. Do you know what I mean? Definitely depends on your emotional state of what's going on. And also, the market is strange at the moment just because of what's going on. It's like there's a lot of uncertainty in the atmosphere just everywhere. And I'm sure some people can really take advantage of that, but for me, it's kind of watching, really.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, you really don't want your mental state to be affected by wins or losses. I mean,
Yeah,
No,
you shouldn't be
absolutely.
you shouldn't be victim of recency bias, right?
No, but I think that comes with experience, doesn't it? It's
Yeah,
the more
exactly.
trade you put on, the bigger the sort of your own personal data set, where then the experience curve goes up. Do you know what I mean? It's like they sort of cross. And so it's only experience that gets through that. But you were right what you were talking about earlier, Vulcan. You just have to go through it. It doesn't matter how many times people tell you and warn you about this, that, and the next. You'll think you find a way, but no, because there's always something to learn that you haven't plugged the hole with. And as long as you manage to stay above water, then you know.
Yeah, and I mean
Today,
that's
we're good.
I think that's why risk management is key because, as you were saying, you need to stay afloat. You need to endure into this market, and you need to be able to survive long enough to learn the rules of the game, how the game is played. Because if you have a bad risk management, you're gonna be washed out. Let's say 1 week, 1 month, and you won't even have the chance to really learn how it works, right?
So this goes back to what you were saying. I think we were talking about earlier about when people just crash out and disappear. And it's like I think it's this sort of area that tends to happen. But I think everybody crashes out. So I've just crashed out.
Yeah, me too.
No problem. Do you know what I mean? But it was a shock. But it's like you just have to get through it. As long as you didn't crash out completely, you can then start building up again, and you can start learning about the swings and roundabouts of doing really well in a rally and thinking you're doing really well. As soon as the bear market comes, you lose all your money. Do you know what I mean? Or and you're basically trying to offset those two curves. But to get them to do that, you've got to follow the market. Your emotions follow the market until you learn otherwise. You know what I mean? And that's why people, they get out of the bottom and they get out of the bottom and they sell at the bottom and get in at the top. It's really common.
Yeah, I
think.
think.
It's common. Yeah, it's really common. I agree with that. Yeah.
It sort of, I think it kind of ties back into the risk model because if a lot of people when they're starting out, they're risking too much. They don't have a risk model. They really don't have any appreciation of risk because they think
perception.
Because they think they can solve the risk problem through analysis, which is absurd.
I think I'm at that stage at the moment. If I'm going to be completely honest with myself, I think I'm just starting to explore risk management. I just found somebody that's sort of come into this, and it's definitely helping, sort of layering in and out of,
but I guess you're one step ahead because at least you're aware of that, so you can fix it, right?
So I was
on. I'm about trying to be doing that because I'm 18 months into my trading. That's So I'm just saying that the risk management thing is, as a new trader, it's just too abstract to understand. I bet most people don't understand it.
Up until the point it bites you, it is abstract. Yeah.
By the time you've learned what it means, that's when you start taking it seriously. But there's too much else going on. I mean, it's like looking at the charts for the first time is basically like walking into a disco. Do you know what I mean? With everything going on, loads of loud bangs and things all the time. It's just too much information.
Yeah,
but I think it's the reason it's what Falcone was saying. He was bringing on a very good point, and I would like to. I would like him to go on this because that he was on a very good path on it. The perception of that looking at the charts gives you actually, a supreme edge on the market, and you don't need to think about risk management. So I would like Falcone to keep expand on it.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is people, they naturally encounter the realities of the market, and they, a lot of times, they, like you said, they don't understand the importance of risk management until they do in a painful way. But then the wrong path that a lot of people take after that experience is then they'll double down on analysis and think that they can solve the risk problem through analysis, and that's just the wrong path to go down. The better path is to go down the path of a risk management model. And that's why I had a call with Abraham Lehman the other day and told him that he was surprised that my initial risk on a trade was 0.15%. But I've got a Mark Douglas quote here. The quote is, "If you can learn to create a state of mind that is not affected by the market's behavior, the struggle will cease to exist." So when you're trading with a low risk profile, you're able to interact with the market in a way that is just almost with certainty going to be more profitable.
Okay. So let me get it straight. So you just said that your initial risk is 0.5% on a trade, right?
0.15.
Oh, 0.15. Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty on the low side of the spectrum. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think as a lot of stuff in trading, it is it is very personal. And I do agree on the fact that you need to find that